Am I making you uncomfortable? I'm making myself uncomfortable just sitting here in silence, staring at a camera, and just making even a video on silence is the weirdest thing for me. In today's video, we're going to be talking about if it's good or if it's bad to have silence at any point on a date. And this is very interesting for me to talk about because I'm going to be vulnerable in a story that I have to tell. Hola, my name is Grady and I'm a 22-year-old boy who has never dated a girl longer than 22 hours. And in today's video, I'm not going to be telling a dating story. I'm going to be telling just a story straight out of my life, of a time where I was at a party. The reason I even thought about making this video is because of this book right here, Facts of Life and Love for Teenagers, written by Evelyn Millis Duvall. But Evelyn Millis Duvall talks about how silence on dates doesn't necessarily have to be bad. Well, what I have to say is, Evelyn Millis Duvall, you're not me, okay? You don't understand what it's like to be Grady in a conversation with silence. It's like torture. It's like living in a living hell. I don't know how I can handle it, okay? So this video is really just gonna be about me, and if you can glean something from it, if you can learn something from it, that is my ultimate goal. I think if you hear my thought process, it might start making you consider what your thought process is in regards to silence in dating. So let's set up the scene where I was at a party. So this was roughly about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And I was sitting at a party and I was the youngest at the table. And I knew most of the people I was sitting with. They weren't necessarily the best of friends, but they were acquaintances that I hadn't seen in a year, 2 years, 3 years. But I still had grown up with them, so I knew them pretty well. I was roughly 21 at the time. So I was the youngest at the table, but I felt the need as I was sitting there to be the one leading the conversation. I was the one that was kind of the odd man out, and what I mean by that is they all knew each other better than I knew them. Although we were all connected, I felt like I had to help be the critical part in the conversation. I felt like I had to be the one leading the conversation, or else why am I there? So I started asking them questions. I started asking them what they're doing in life and the strategies behind what they're doing in life and the significance of why they bought this or why they chose to do that or so on and so forth. And I was digging deeper and deeper and deeper into their personal lives without sharing anything about me. Now there's two types of Gradys. There's actually a lot of types of Gradys that you can interact with in public life. Here on YouTube, I'm the entertainer Grady, or I at least try to be a somewhat sane entertainer Grady in front of the camera. I put on this big smile and I do my best not to be monotone. Some of the videos are monotone. Maybe this video is monotone, I don't know. But anyway. And then in other areas of life, some people I'm more closed off around and I just am simply observing. Whereas other people that I'm with, I'm laughing a lot and I'm having a fun time, and sometimes they almost view me as like the immature one, whereas in other groups they view me as the mature one. So it's very different because sometimes different people bring out different parts of me, if that makes sense. But anyway, I'm just setting the stage. One friend once said to me a long time ago, she said, "Why do you always," and I might butcher what she said, but she said, "You can't always just ask about me but never share about you." And don't get me wrong, sometimes I do share a lot about myself with certain people. Sometimes I can, when I'm really passionate about something, just go on and on and on about it. But there are definitely other times where I don't necessarily want to share about myself, but at the same time, I don't want there to be a lull in the conversation, because I feel like if there is a lull in the conversation, it's because I wasn't leading the conversation correctly. And so this story, it's kind of hard to explain it without you actually being there, but it stands out as significant to me, and I even wrote a journal entry about it because I journal. And it was just, I was firing off rapid questions, not only because I didn't want there to be a lull in the conversation, but because I didn't want these people who are actually doing pretty well in life to ask about me, and I didn't want to necessarily share about, oh, I'm not doing well in this area, or I'm not as accomplished in this area, and so on and so forth. I did a speech in high school on the topic of insecurity, and through the beginning ages of high school, it was more like insecurity about my looks. But I realized last year at the party that I wasn't really insecure about my looks anymore. That was a thing I knew I got over in the early era of, middle of high school. But I did still have a modern adulthood insecurity where I was insecure about the status of where I was as an adult. And that was affecting this conversation because I was so caught up in there not being silence. I didn't want that to say anything about my inability to have a conversation, and B, I didn't want the silence to expose an opportunity for them to understand more about me and potentially look down on where I was currently at in life. Anyway, I apologize if this is getting too philosophical, but I walked away from that knowing A, I don't really like parties, and B, I need to get better at just not being afraid of being in a transitional part of my life and not being afraid of silence. There's two types of people in this world. There's people who A, are totally fine with silence, and B, the people who are not comfortable with silence. And me, I'm kind of B, whereas my brother Mac, hello Mac, he was like, yeah, I was with this girl, blah, 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 and we were just sitting there and not talking about anything, and it was totally cool, and I liked it. And I'm like, what? How can you be sitting around and not doing anything and not talking? And I realize for myself that there has to be a balance, right? And with people I am super comfortable with, I am totally fine of having that silence. But because I rarely get to that point where I'm super comfortable with someone, I never get to that point where I'm okay having silence with them. Like, it's literally more natural to me to ask the most uncomfortable question to them and get their response rather than to sit in silence and say nothing and be uncomfortable in that way. The thing is though, in Facts of Life and Love for Teenagers, the book mentions that there is nothing to fear in silence. Obviously, a part of me not wanting silence is because I just want to be a good conversationalist, and I really love conversations, and I love asking people questions, and I love hearing from people. One of the things actually that I've written in my journal before is why I focus so much on other people is because I already know everything there is to know about me. But I want to learn everything there is to know about the other person. So sometimes I've literally stopped someone when they ask a question about me and I say, whoa, we weren't done talking about you yet. And then I just turn the table and get back to talking about them. And obviously that's, when you look at it, it's kind of selfish. And I'm getting better at it, but yes, I'm understanding the things I want to know about the person sitting across from me. And that's clearly important in dating. But it's selfish if I don't allow that other person to get to know me. And on the flip side of this, like I said, you can go too far, you can talk too much, you can get down that rabbit trail of talking about what you're passionate about and talking forever, and that other person might not want that. And so it's important to be a talker, but be a listener. That's the key of being a good conversationalist, is doing both of those things. I really like listening, and in smaller moments, I really do like talking, but I need to get better at balancing those things. And so when reading about this in the book, I saw it as a good opportunity to bring this up, to just share a little bit more about me personally, and hope that someone could take something away from this and either become more of a better listener or a better speaker and share more about themselves personally and open up. So as we near the end of this video, I'm just going to read the 2 paragraphs that this book says about silence, just so you can benefit from it like I did. Nothing to fear in silences. There is nothing to fear in silences. Some of our nicest times with other people are the quiet moments when no words are necessary. When 9th grade boys in an Iowa high school were asked if they liked girls who talk a lot, 58 answered no, and only 13 answered yes. A good conversationalist is not necessarily the one who talks all the time. More often, he or she is the sensitive person who listens well and is not afraid of the silences that come along from time to time. When nothing has been said for a while, either of you may break the silence. No apology is needed. You do not have to say anything about how dull a companion you are and how you can't think of anything to say. Better to say nothing for a moment. Perhaps the girl will break the silence with a little smile and a nice comment on how pleasant the evening is, or how she is enjoying the music, or show by some little sign that she is having a good time and feeling happy inside. This increases the boy's sense of security. His tongue may be loosened and the conversation may roll again. So here is my dare to you. Next time you're on a date, go a straight 15 seconds without saying anything, like I roughly did in the beginning of this video, and see what happens. I'm curious to see what happens, And if you have an interesting report of what happened with that other person and how they reacted to your 15 seconds of silence, I'd love for you to come back here and comment below, because that would be quite intriguing for me to read. Silence can be an asset or it can be a liability. It's up to you to choose how to utilize silence within your conversation and how you react to it. Alright, if you enjoyed my vulnerability in today's video, you can hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to help me even more, you can be an awesome person, because that helps the world way more than you pressing like or commenting below. Alright, we'll talk later, and I hope you have a good day. Adios. Good night.